Привет. I'm Chuck Olenek. I'm a Ukrainian-American who was baptized with the name Yaroslav, which is conveniently the name that I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism. For years, I've done research on Slavic folklore and mythology and history, and I finally decided, hey, let's share this information by way of YouTube. So I've been making videos of the various folk tales and of explaining the mythology and putting these up on my YouTube channel, which would also be really nice if you subscribe to it. Just thought I'd mention that. One of the tales that I've been looking at is the story of Vasily the Drunkard and Tsar Batyg. This comes from a reference during the siege of Moscow in 1381, where the Mongols are besieging the city, and apparently a lot of the people just they gave up and they just started drinking. They're just getting hammered. And some people, however, fought on the wall, and there was a cloth dealer that was mentioned who was supposed to have been standing by the Frolov gate or above the Frolov gate and fired an arrow, and he killed somebody who was really important, that was, part of that horde. It was a son, a person of distinction, and that caused the leader of the Mongols to just kind of fall apart and end the siege. Well, Moscow isn't really the center for a lot of the folk tales. A lot of the folk tales are set in Kyiv and Rus, and that's what happened with this story. So it's kind of an idealized story, and it's transferred to that favorite time of Prince Volodymyr, bright son, who is a mixture of Saint Volodymyr and Volodymyr Monomach. And it's taking place during the siege of Kyiv by Batyg, really, that's Batu Khan, in 1240. And it really rewrites history. Well, let's get into it. Who will tell us of the things of old, of the things of old, of the things that have been, of that Vasily, of Vasily Ignatievich, of Vasily the Drunkard, and of Tsar Batyg? From beneath the cross Levanidov, from beneath the birch so white, issued forth 2 aurochs and 3 aurochs, and roamed past Kyiv town. By Kyiv they beheld a wondrous marvel, a marvelous wonder. A damsel came forth, weeping bitterly, and bearing in her hands the book of the Holy Gospel. As she read, she wept in 2-fold measure. Then the aurochs went to their mother. "Hail, Mother Aurochs," said they. "We have been to Kyiv town and beheld a marvel," and they told her of the damsel. "Foolish aurochs are ye, little children," quoth Mother Aurochs. "That was no damsel weeping sore, but the city wall lamenting, for she hath foreseen ill fortune for Kyiv. Tsar Batyg is come with his son-in-law, and with his learned scribe. His son's host numbereth 40,000, the host of his son-in-law 40,000, and the learned scribes no less. Batyg marched to Kyiv town, pitched his white pavilions, and demanded of Prince Volodymyr an adversary in single combat. Now it chanced by evil fortune that the best of the heroes were not in Kyiv town. Ilya Muromets had been dispatched to the Latinsky to buy heroic steeds, Dobrynya Nikitich to the Cherkassian country for saddles, and Alyosha Popovich to the Sorochinsky land for wheat. But there dwelt in Kyiv town, royal Kyiv town, in those days, a hero and good youth, Vasily Ignatievich by name, who abode in the imperial pothouse. He had squandered in drink his wife's dowry, squandered away all his possessions. Ho there, ye princes and nobles, quoth Prince Volodymyr, bright sun, red sun. Summon Vasily Ignatievich hither to me. And the nobles did as they were bid to do. And they went to the royal pothouse and sought out Vasily and addressed him with these words. Ho there, little Vasily the drunkard, why dost thou lie there naked on the oven without a thread? Do you not know that Tsar Batyg hath come upon us and is now before Kyiv town? The dog hath written to our prince and maketh boast, I will burn and raze Kyiv town. I will dissolve God's churches in smoke. I will take captive the prince and the princess. And us, the princes and nobles, he will seethe in a kettle. Then Vasily, greeted with those words, slipped down from the oven, barred up the pothouse, making all very fast, tore from the princes and the nobles all their fine apparel, wrenched out a doorpost, and belabored the men upon their naked ribs, pursuing them even to the royal court. When Volodymyr looked on them, he smiled and said, Ho, my princes and nobles, have ye drunk or gamed? Little father, Prince Volodymyr, they made answer, we have neither drunk nor gamed, but Vasily the drunkard hath done us this dishonor. Ah, ye stupid nobles and senseless, quoth Volodymyr, ye have not appeased the youth, but irritated him. Then Volodymyr went himself to the royal pothouse, prayed before the wonder-working holy picture, saluted on all four sides with a special reverence to Vasily, and spoke to him in the words of the princes and the nobles. Fetch me a little cup of drunkenness, little father, Prince Volodymyr, quoth Vasily, the cup from which drinketh Ilya of Merom. Now Ilya's cup held 6 buckets and a half, but he drained it dry. Fetch yet another cup for health, little father, the one from which drinketh Dobrina Nikitich. And that cup, all of 4 buckets and a half, Vasily drained also. And yet a third cup, the cup of Alyosha Popovich, of 2 buckets and a half. Then Vasily said, Now I may sit my horse and wield my sword. Thereupon he went forth to the city wall, and from the angled tower he shot a single arrow, which slew 3 of Batyg's best heads, his son-in-law, and his cunning scribe. Tsar Batyg had fleet horses and good, and he sent swift messengers to royal Kyiv town, demanding that the offender be delivered up to him forthwith. Kyiv town is not small. A falcon may not fly about it in a summer's day, nor a little bird soar across it, and the guilty man could not be found. Vasily mounted his good steed, and clad in warlike array, with his Tatar spear, his heavy sword, his stout bow, and gilded arrows, sallied forth before the face of Batyg. Hail, Tsar Batyg, he said, wilt thou receive me as thy comrade? We will take Kyiv together. We will burn and destroy it, and God's temples we will turn to dust. Tsar Batyg was beguiled by his speech, and when Vasily asked for 40,000 men to take Kyiv, he gave them gladly. Then Vasily rode forth into the open plain, the open steppe, with this host, made a turn to the right, unsheathed his great heavy sword, and cut down and slew them to the last man. Then Vasily the drunkard returned to the face of Tsar Batyg. Forgive this my first fault, he said. I have lost that host of 40,000, but I have spied out royal Kyiv town and viewed it where the gates are open and unbarred. So Tsar Batyg gave him another 40,000, besides gold and silver without measure, for accomplishing this deed. Again, Vasily rode into the open steppe and slaughtered this new host. He returned to Batyg craving pardon yet again. Tsar Batyg gave him an additional host, but these also Vasily slew. Batyg took a spyglass and viewed the glorious open steppe and beheld the evil deed, for the steppe was littered with the bodies of his men. Then he assembled his good steeds and returned to his own land, and swore an oath never more to lay siege to royal Kyiv town, for in Kyiv town there was no lack of heroes. And from that day forth they began to sing the song of Vasily the Drunkard, which shall be sung forevermore. It was at the feast I heard this tale, there it was I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.